We'll go ahead and try to get started. We've got probably close to 70 people signed up to speak, and we told everybody 3 minutes each. So if you do the math, that's going to be after 9 o'clock, and they're going to kick us out right at 9 o'clock. So I want to get to as many people as I possibly can. So if you hear somebody, if somebody's made your point and they did a good job and you don't think you need to repeat yourself, you can just pass if you don't want to speak. If you've spoken at the last 2 or 3 meetings and you don't really have anything new to say, I don't want to cut anybody off, but if anything you can do, if you can keep it under 3 minutes, if you can keep it to 2 minutes, that's even better, just so everybody has a chance to speak tonight. I'm Josh Anderson. I'm the chairman of Anderson County Commission and chairman of the Library Board. We've got most of our library board here. This is our 4 library directors, Daphne Wyndham at Briceville, Kelly Harris at Rocky Top, Mariah Webb at Clinton, and Kimberly Burge at Norris. The Anderson County Library Board we're responsible for those 4 libraries. Oak Ridge is its own separate system within the city. Got Matthew Jordan here in the audience. He's our regional librarian. They're kind of an advisory role for the county library systems. His boss is Trey Hargett, who's the Secretary of State, and his boss is the General Assembly. So that's kind of where a lot of our guidance comes through the state library, what we kind of defer to them. So that's kind of the chain of command on that. Mariah, do you want to talk about we've got a collection development policy, and that kind of guides how books are brought into the system. We've also got a policy. We've got forms if you want to request a book, patron request forms. We have forms if you want to challenge a book. You have to read the book, fill out the form, and then that goes to a subcommittee, and ultimately the board looks at it and does that request. So we've had to date 3 children's books that we've reviewed and made the decision to retain on. We've got 1 book that's kind of at the committee level right now. And then there's the books that have kind of been distributed that I think maybe one's been officially challenged, but we haven't had any actual reconsideration requests. So do you have anything you want to add on the collection policy, or where they can go to look at the development policy?
I'm loud, so y'all can hear me. The library's collection development policy can be found on the Clinton Public Library website. There's a link across the bar at the top that says policies. You can go there, you can click it, you can download it, you can print it. If you want to come in, I'll print it for you. If you have any questions, I'm always glad to answer them. Is that sufficient?
Thanks, yeah. And we've got Jay Yeager, our county attorney, is here in the audience. Jay, did you have anything that you wanted to bring up tonight, or you just here? Okay. Okay, other than that, let me go through a few of the rules. I'm trying to make sure this is as much of a community forum. The library board called this hearing, so this is an actual county meeting, publicly noticed by the library board. It's not affiliated with a party or any other private organization or anything like that. So we're not going to take any action tonight. This is just a forum to hear comments on collection policy, on books, good or bad, whatever you think. So when I call your name, you come up to speak, state your name and address for everybody in the audience, just so we know you're local. If you have a library card and you want to mention that you've got a library card, that's great too. Try to keep your remarks under 3 minutes, brief as possible. Don't get too repetitive. Make all your comments to me, to the chairman. That's who you're talking to. You're not trying to persuade anybody in the audience or anything, or you're not performing for the audience. Just talk to me, sit down. Don't make any personal attacks on any librarians or directors or anyone in the audience. No back and forth or exchanges. We're not really here to debate. We're just here to listen. So with that, I'm going to start, and please, we're going to have to move through this list fast to get to everyone. So no reactions or jeering or applause, good, bad, or the other. Commissioner Allen.
Would you maybe go 2 or 3 deep, maybe call 2 or 3 people?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, if you want to, we'll start lining up now. We'll start. We've got Abby Baxter, Sarah Gunter, Kelsey Harrell, if you want to line up. And Janine, you're gonna time it.
Is it all right to start?
Yep, go
Okay,
ahead.
I've misplaced my notes.
Just give us your name and address.
My name is Abby Baxter. I live at 649 Old Lake City Highway. That's in Rocky Top, 37769. I had 4 points on paper, so I'll go off memory. I wanted to address the issues about book banning, and I wanted to voice my opinion that I don't agree with it, and I find it most upsetting, thank you so much, because I find a lot of hypocrisy in the fact that this has even been brought up, and I'm also a little bit ashamed that this is even an issue in our county. It's cringe, embarrassing. I wanted to start in, though, that this doesn't even fit in with the legal framework of this country. This is not what America was founded on. It's anti-First Amendment, it's anti-Constitution, it's anti-what I joined the military to protect. It's also fascism. The last time we talked about this, and last time this was an agenda, was when Hitler was in office. Hitler! This was Hitler doing this last time we went around about this. So I want everyone to make sure they know who's on the side of Hitler. Some of the other hypocrisy is that it's been brought up that things are indecent in the library, aren't fit for kids, when we have a commissioner out selling flags on the side of the road that say, "Fuck Biden." So he's okay to say that and sell that, but he's concerned about the safety of children. I find that very hypocritical.
Abby, no, the language.
I will, thank you. So the other thing about, since I'm on commissioners, is why are they pushing this when where I live in Rocky Top, it's skyrocketing, homelessness, poverty, crime, drugs. Why are we worried about that? Books aren't causing skyrocketing poverty, homelessness, and everything else in Rocky Top. And it's a distraction. This is just national politics, and it's a circus, and people are getting swept up in fear-mongering, and it's like the satanic panic. And that's pretty much what this is. That's all I have to say, so I'll cede my time to help everybody else. Sorry for the language, but I was quoting what was being sold as a product, so I want to be clear about that. I chose not to say that word. I said that to quote what he is selling. Thank you.
We got to keep moving, so hold the applause, okay? Sarah Gunter.
So I'm going to take off my mask so I can speak. I wanted to explain a little bit about the nature of the books. A lot of these are graphic novels. That does not mean that they are graphic in nature. A graphic novel is a format most people will recognize as similar to a comic book. That just means that it has pictures to accommodate the words. Graphic novels are incredibly important in the world of literacy to this day, as they are hyper accessible to people with learning, reading, and understanding disabilities. They are there to help the person who is reading understand the context of what's being told to them. In a fiction work, it's there to help illustrate the story, and in a nonfiction work, like most of the books being challenged are, the pictures are there to help give clear definitions and examples of what's being told in the book. Now, a lot of these are sex education books, and the reason I think that nonfiction sexual education books are vastly important is because, since it is not often talked about in society, a lot of kids and teenagers who are reading into books don't know what in the world a lot of these terms mean. And if you're coming from a route where you are having trouble reading, having trouble understanding, large blocks of text without any pictures or examples are going to be very difficult. Also, on the line of accessibility, books in libraries are one of the only places left that you can get free books and media without having to pay something first in the building. Libraries are integral for people who are experiencing homelessness or who don't have access to finances, who are down on their rent and have to sell their PlayStation to make rent. Libraries are incredibly important for making sure that everybody has access to information. And graphic novels are a big part of making sure that that everybody includes everybody.
Okay, that was Kelsey Harrell, I'm sorry. Sarah?
Sorry,
Sarah,
Kelsey Harrell, 682 Robertsville Road,
okay,
Oak Ridge,
thanks.
sorry, forgot that part.
Sarah Gunter.
Hi, I'm Sarah Gunter. I live on 263 Cumberland View Road in Clinton. That's my library card. I am so excited because I've never seen this many people in one room that care about libraries. I always feel alone when I'm in the library, like it's just me and the books, so this is awesome. I just came today because I should be at home like cooking for the 6 kids and gardening. But I wanted to make sure that my voice was heard along with others, and that's that I support the professional judgments of our library, and they've looked at the books, they've reconsidered them, they've made sure that they are age appropriate, and that's the end of that. So I'm just ready to shut this down so we can go home and not have to take away time from our families where our time is way more valuable. And I look forward to seeing all these people at the library, checking out these books, especially the books that are under consideration. They're wonderful books, especially the one about the little girl and her grandpa. Oh my gosh, that's the saddest little story. One of the books that's under consideration is about a little girl who has 2 grandpas, and tragically one of them dies. And her grandpa gets depressed. That was the love of his life, and the camper's in the yard, and it's falling apart. It's old. He's depressed, and she says, "Hey, let's fix up Granddad's camper and go on a camping trip." And this little girl and her grandpa come together. They fix up this camper van, and they hit the open road for an awesome camping trip with a little girl and a grandpa. I'm really astounded that this book was such criticism was cast upon it. But anyway, I encourage you to read the banned books. Every banned book should be read every day.
Devin Earhart, Stephen Varon, Nathan Mullins, Donna Maloney. And just be sure and repeat your name and address. Is Devin here? Yeah, there he is. Yes, sorry.
Hi, my name is Devin Earhart. I live on 109 Greenbrier Lane in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I grew up here. I graduated from UT. I own a business in the community. And for me, I have an English degree, and libraries have been formative in my life. As has already been stated, I find the concept of a book banning in the realm of totalitarianism and fascism, especially for the types of books that are under consideration. I don't believe any books should ever be banned. I know that one of the arguments is that there's subject matter that's not fit for children in these books, and I'd say if you've read the books, especially the children's books, I would disagree that it's unfit for children. I would argue if that's your criteria, there are other books that are frequently pushed to be read that have more objectionable material. One comes to mind that misinterpretations of, I think, have caused this to come to pass, that has the world's oldest erotic poem in it, as an entire chapter of it. References to what should happen with people after they engage in certain types of sexual activity of all sorts. And just a wide variety of other material that I think would be objectionable to children. Of course, I'm speaking of the Bible, and so I don't think that should be banned. I think it has more graphic material, not necessarily objectionable, but graphic material than the books that are under consideration. And so I think if you've actually read it and you think the content in there is okay, I find it hard to put my finger on what parts of these books that you find objectionable. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Steve Varon.
I'm Stephen Varon. I'm from Oak Ridge, Tennessee. We've got a very wide and diverse crowd from Oak Ridge, people from all over the world. Everybody from waitresses to people with PhDs. And we all love and accept one another just as we are, or else there would be constant civil war in Oak Ridge. Now, in this package that was put together, wasn't put together, I don't think, by somebody that visited the library. I think this package came down from the Republican National Committee to spread hate in our community. These books are targeted against the LGBTQ community, and this is the way how hate and violence spreads. It's been done this way for centuries. As the girl mentioned, this is what Hitler did. He started picking away, blaming things on the Jews. This is the way how the KKK did it, blaming things on the blacks, and creating all sorts of problems. You know, they're trying to discriminate against the LGBTQ community, and that's why they've raised all this hate in our community. Now then, Jesus said for us to love one another. And even the Ten Commandments says to love your neighbor. So I just want everybody to reject hate and love one another, regardless of your feeling about these books. But this is not about books. This is about discrimination out and out. And that's all I've got to say.
Nathan, we'll move a lot faster if we don't applaud, okay? Nathan Mullins, or I'm sorry, Donna?
Donna.
Yeah.
Donna Maloney. I'm from Oak Ridge. Some of the folks who wish to ban these books from our public libraries characterize them as obscene. An individual does not get to determine whether something is obscene for the purpose of banning that material. The Supreme Court has laid out a legal test to determine whether something is obscene and therefore not covered under the First Amendment. It is a three-part test. It is known as the Miller test, and unless a court has ruled something obscene, it falls under First Amendment protection. As for the First Amendment, book bans in general are a violation of this constitutional right. Bans deprive citizens of their right to receive information and ideas. No individual or group of individuals can decide per their particular beliefs or opinions that books or materials do not belong in a public library. Now, as for tax dollars being spent for materials that some may deem inappropriate, I would like to say I don't approve of nuclear weapons or B-1 bombers. However, as a member of this democratic society where we elect people to make decisions for us, I must still pay my taxes and abide by the decisions based on what is good for society as a whole. We here in Anderson County have elected county commissioners to make decisions for us. They have decided that a library board, in consultation with professional librarians, shall decide what will be offered in our library. They appoint individuals to this board who are willing to make choices based on what is good for our community as a whole. This board has a process for addressing concerns regarding any of those choices, and individuals do not get to circumvent that process just because they do not like a result. A few individuals, or even a group, does not get to make choices and impose them on the majority of citizens. That is the definition of fascism. And the last time I checked, at least for now, this country is still a democracy. Also, county commissioners are elected to make decisions based on what the majority of their constituents want, not to make decisions dictated by the tyranny of a few.
Nathan Mullins.
My name is Nathan Mullins, and I'm from the Anderson County Book Review Club. Contrary to what you may have heard, I'm not here to applaud partisan prejudices between us or fan flames of animosity in the culture war. However, I am here to expose the overreach of certain activists that are forcing trans activism through sex ed books at preteens. The original 3 books the county commission flagged for review were aimed at elementary students and were indeed shelved right next to Thomas the Tank Engine. County Commissioner Shane Vowell cross-examined a librarian who admitted that the books in question were reclassified as teen and adult that were originally aimed at kids. Other evidence has been brought to the courthouse, such as graphic sex illustrations aimed at teens. I have turned over a recording of a library board member advocating the use of an activist manifesto. This library director on this board conspired against your county commissioners, saying, "I have in my possession the Intellectual's Guide to Freedom," which lines out different strategies groups are using to take our books out of circulation. She then proceeded to share these activist strategies with PFLAG, the Unitarian Universalist Church, and the League of Women Voters at this meeting I attended. The underlying context is your library board is overrepresented by members of these leftist clubs, which are then hiring an overrepresentation of intersectional employees that enable the trans agenda sex ed books to be aimed at kids. Ergo, the grooming of tween and preteens that are still asexual.
Sorry. We gotta move on. We gotta move on. Three minutes.
Oh, well, we'll be back.
Jason Chandler, Jess Ann Cole, Jan Joycel, Ken Walker.
Good afternoon, and thank you for hearing me, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you guys. It takes pressure because I don't speak well in public. Some people would say I never shut up. What I wanted to do, I do not have all the intricate levels of where the government is at any given thing, and I'm sure that you have a huge task in front of you. Obviously, it struck a nerve. But what I can do is I can tell you about what has happened in my life, the things that I have had to overcome because of something that dealt with literature. I'm 7 years old. I'm 47 now. So 40 years ago, I'm cutting across a yard with two of my friends. We're going to go play. We looked over and there was a box. Well, what's in the box? It's out in the middle of a field. Somebody discarded their literature, their adult literature. I don't know what some of the ladies and women in this group think about guys that demean them and try to undress them with their eyes. I became that person. I was a horrible person. The only thing that saved me from that was Jesus Christ. That is the only thing. Now, you guys have a horrible task. You have to dictate what is and what is not going to be acceptable. There is one king, and that is Christ the King. The thing that you also have to look at is the ramifications of it. So there is a freedom to do things. There is a First Amendment right, and thank the Lord that He has given us a Bill of Rights. But what you also have to look at is where does that come into play? When you have a 7-year-old that is seeing the stuff that I saw, I can't unsee that. For 40 years, I've tried. I got into alcohol, I got into drugs, I got into all kinds of things. And if it hadn't been for Christ, I would still be there, but thank the Lord that he has brought me out of that. I would say one thing, and I forgot who it was, and I apologize. I was trying to listen to you. Someone talked about the Bible being offensive, and it is in our library. It has some wonderful things, and the things that were mentioned, they are in there, but they're never looked at well. Okay, it always goes bad for those people. It does say, he said to his disciples, temptation to sin is sure to come, but woe to the one through whom it comes. It would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were cast into the sea, then he should cause one of these little ones to sin. When you look at these, know the troubles that cause in society, the rape that you have, all of the things, the teen pregnancy, a lot of this stuff, where's it coming from? It needs to be taught at home and in the Bible. That's all I had to say. Thank you for your time.
Give us your name. Just name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Jan Joyle. My address is 450 Frost Bottom Road, Oliver Springs. And I just want to say I'm just a mom. I'm just a mom of 9 children who educated them at home. And I love libraries. I love public libraries. That was always one of the first outings I took my newborn and all my children on. And that libraries helped us a lot in our homeschooling, supplemented our materials, and it was really great. But I was able to safely leave my children in the children's area while I went and looked for adult books. In my library, some of the books that are mentioned here today were in the adult section, so if any parent wanted to check them out and felt it was appropriate for their children, they were free to do so, but they weren't mingled in among the children's books, and I think that that's appropriate. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ken Walker. I live at 140 Royal View Lane in Claxton. And tonight, I've listened to a lot of comments that I've heard here. And in February, there was a library board meeting where the county attorney recommended to the library directors that they take the questionable material and put it aside in areas where the children could not access them. And there was a man in the audience who asked the question to the library directors, are you going to take action on the attorney's recommendations? And the Clinton library director, she responded emphatically no. And the rest of the directors did not respond. And it seems reasonable that materials that are questionable, I mean, you have to understand that there are materials that are not, there are materials that are not appropriate for certain ages. And the fact that we're willing to put those materials in areas where young children can see them, they do not even have to have, their parents don't even have to know about it, they can even check them out. The fact that that can happen in our Anderson County libraries is quite a shame. And I really wish that we would redirect our policies so that this no longer happens. We have to have some accountability. And I wonder where the accountability is, where we have library employees who seem to be able to do whatever they want and follow whatever activist agenda they seem to have. And there's no accountability, and they can continue doing it without any reprisal.
Excuse me, ma'am.
So I really wish that we would carefully look at these policies. Commissioners, I wish that you would look and make sure that our library directors have some accountability so that we can keep materials that don't belong in the hands of young children out of their view. Thank you.
You want to give your name and address?
Yes, my name is Jill Brown, and I'm taking Jess Ann Cole's position, if that's okay. My address is 222 CCC Camp Road in Norris. And I have no prepared speech, so forgive me, I'm not a public speaker. I grew up in this community. I grew up in Clinton. I went very frequently to the Clinton Library, and I read books like Nancy Drew and Runaway Ralph and all of those good books for, elementary school kids. And I'm sorry, but I have to agree with the gentleman that preceded me that these graphic novels are pure filth. They are from the pit of hell. They are satanic. And this is a spiritual warfare for our community. Now, I know I'm getting a lot of scoffers, but that's okay. Jesus loves you too, and he wants you to come to the cross. He does. He loves you. He loves you, and he wants a relationship with you. He does. And so I'm going to pray for you. I went to the library before this, and I prayed about this, that this would be defeated and that Satan would not have his way. And so I would admonish you to look to the Scripture for your guidance here in making this decision. We just had a young man who has fooled himself to believing he was a woman kill 6 people and himself was killed today. If that is not a testimony of how messed up this whole transgender strategy is, agenda is, then I don't know what is. I mean, that has hit our own community. So I would leave you with this. Here's what I would leave you with. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and shrewd in their own sight. That's from the book of Isaiah. Please seek Christ. Please seek him. Everybody in this audience needs him.
Joshua Jones, Abby Moore, Jeremy Mefford, Jim Harris. While everybody's coming up, I forgot to mention earlier, one of the things I wanted to clarify. Children have to be 11. You have to be older than 11 to be in the library without a parent or guardian. And if you're under 18, you cannot get a library card without a parent's signature. So I wanted to clarify that. But anyway, go ahead, come up.
Thank you all very much. My name is Joshua Jones. I live at 566 Granite Road. I did have a longer talk, but several have offered viewpoints that are very similar, so I have one response and then just a few further points to make. My initial response would be to those who have offered viewpoints that banning books is fascism. I believe that's a false dichotomy, and the reason I believe that's a false dichotomy is just because Hitler banned books does not mean anyone who wants to ban books is immediately a fascist. Those who are coming here tonight and advocating against the books that are in question specifically are people,
when everybody jeers. Okay?
Those who are advocating for the removal of these books specifically are individuals who are not interested in fascist ways. They are interested in what they believe is the protection of children. And as a result of the protection of children, that is why we are here tonight. I am also here tonight because I'm a servant of the Most High God and a parent. And I see the moral line that continues to move leftward being more like a moral door, constantly cracked further open. Years ago, the left side of the LGBTQ, etc. movement letters pushed the door open for them. In subsequent years, another group has asked for the door to be open, and so on and so forth, until we are at the point we are at today. The worldview behind this movement produces adherents and followers through nurture, not nature. This is why these library books come in. We have already heard what kind of damage this worldview can and has done to countless children in the name of progress. But what is more pervasive, and what I believe is just as dangerous, is who else is on the other side of that door, a soon-to-be accepted proponent of the sexual revolution who wants in. There are a number of categories, such as bestiality and pedophilia, which is already being spoken of as minor attracted persons. If love is love, who should stop them? What's next after them? Why should we stop any of those folks? So I believe that historically, when we look back in history, what we have seen is when we have sexual revolutions and sexual promiscuity, the primary people who are hurt in these events are women and children. We are here because we love those women and children. We want to protect them. I believe that the scriptures dictate a very clear principle of biological created reality in the image of God, and we are here to protect those image bearers. Thank you very much.
Hi there, Jim Harris. I live on Douglas Lane in Clinton. I'm not here tonight as a member of the media. All the opinions you're about to hear are mine and mine alone. I am here primarily as the husband of Rocky Top Public Library Director Kelly Harris. This woman has been with me for 25 years. I'm a pain. I know she loves me. She loves books just a little bit more. She was born to do this job, to spread her love of reading, to make information available, and to improve people's lives. She does that with great joy. But recently, that has been tempered by anxiety, stress, and fear. She's a librarian. Hateful things that have been said by people who have never actually set foot in her building. There's no agenda here, people, other than providing anyone who wants it with the information they need. I saw the images in your packet that have shocked y'all, and while they are definitely not my cup of tea, the choice to not look at them is entirely 100% the individual's. I have never experienced gender dysphoria, nor have I questioned my sexuality, so those books don't have a whole lot of bearing on my life. But in no way do I have the right to prevent someone else from getting information that may help them and may even save their lives. That's what I was looking for when I searched for and found The Hilarious World of Depression at the Clinton Public Library. It definitely helped me, and you know what? It's not too much of a stretch to say that it maybe saved my life. That book isn't for everybody. It's got a lot of dark humor in it, but it spoke to me. And no matter who you are, representation is important, and so is the freedom to learn. At the last board meeting, I overheard a county commissioner actually say that not everyone deserves to be represented at the library. I find that both disgusting and disqualifying that this individual would choose to ignore even one of their constituents because they think they're icky. I am sorry that the world is changing too fast for some of you. I am sorry that you are scared of things outside your worldview, but the rest of us live out here where things are a little scary and, yeah, sometimes a little weird. Instead of hiding from it or trying to pretend it doesn't exist, how about we leave each other alone, stop the virtue signaling, and try to learn a little bit? Or if it's still too icky for you, or if it has nothing to do with you, ignore it. If you don't want your child to look at these books, tell them that. Tell your child they can't go to certain sections without you. Take a look at what your child is looking at or checking out. My mom was a second grade teacher for 30 years. She looked over every book I ever checked out of the library until I was 12 years old. Odds are that your kid is not going to stumble on some of these books by accident. They may have questions that for some crazy reason they may not want to ask you, so they'll seek out the answers. I say better a book than the internet. So, I will leave you with this, as a citizen, and again, as the husband of that lovely woman right there. Please be respectful of these librarians, these board members. They're doing a great job. Thank you. I have to go feed my daughter.
Jeremy Mefford, Early Drive in the Claxton community. Good evening, everyone. My purpose in speaking at this forum is to shed light on the topic of gender theory so that no one can deny that they are aware of the true nature of what we are discussing. My presence at a couple of the library board meetings has shown me the necessity of this. From the beginning, gender theory and ideology has been filled with sexual predation, mutilation, and coercion of children, as well as lying about the results of clinical work with tragic outcomes. And this is the subject of the books now being taught in the children's section. Any level of research on the topic of gender ideology or gender theory will bring you to the man who coined the term in the first place, a man named Dr. John Money. Now, if you're a parent here who has brought your children to the meeting, I have to assume you use discretion in bringing them here. Dr. Money was a professor in sexology. Dr. Money's most well-known experiment spanned over a decade when he found a pair of twin boys named the Reimer twins, one of whom had a damaged penis from a failed circumcision at birth. Ignoring malpractice in the name of science, he encouraged the parents to raise that boy as a girl from birth, stating that this was in his best interest. He recommended complete reconstruction surgery for the baby, which involved the complete removal of his penis and genitals and the reconstruction of a fake vagina. The boy was never told about his male biology and received artificial estrogen as a young teen to promote breast development. Dr. Money had follow-up appointments with these twins for over a decade. I'm just going to quote from a research paper that details what went on during this experiment. During the twins' psychiatric visits with Money, and as a part of his research, Reimer and his twin brother were directed to inspect one another's genitals and engage in behavior resembling sexual intercourse. Reimer claimed that much of Money's treatment involved the forced reenactment of sexual positions and motions with his brother. In some exercises, the brothers rehearsed missionary positions with thrusting motions, which Money justified as the rehearsal of healthy childhood sexual exploration. At least once, Money photographed these exercises. Money observed these exercises both alone and with as many as 6 colleagues. Reimer recounted anger and verbal abuse from Money if he or his brother resisted orders, in contrast to the calm and scientific demeanor Money presented to their parents. Reimer and his brother underwent Money's treatments at preschool and grade school age. Money described Reimer's treatment as successful. Contrary to Money's notes, Reimer reports that as a child he experienced severe gender dysphoria, that he did not identify as a girl and resented Money's visits for treatment. At the age of 13, Reimer threatened to commit suicide if his parents took him to Money on the next annual visit. This is a man who coined the term gender ideology. Not only was the experiment horrific, Dr. Money lied about the results in his clinical notes, calling it a success, and his lying notes were used to justify thousands of similar surgeries on babies. David Reimer committed suicide at age 38, and his brother died from antidepressant overdose before him. Unfortunately, nothing has changed. Dr. John Money is still hailed and respected in the halls of academia as a pioneer in sexual research. So I want to pull the veneer back on when we're talking about gender ideology, what we're talking about. Thank you.
Thanks. Abby Moore, is she gone? Okay. Liz Ibbotson, Matthew Bond, Aspen Wilson, Chuck Pulliam.
I'm Abby Moore. I live at 109 Abby Moore, 109 Wakefield Road, Oak Ridge. Several others and I talked with Commissioner Anthony Allen on March the 23rd to understand his objections to some of the materials in the Anderson County Public Libraries. And what he stated at that time was that he did not want his taxpayer dollars spent on materials for the public library that he found objectionable. And another argument was for restricting library materials was to protect children expressing concerns for titles with sexual and violent content. I do not find either of these to be valid arguments for restricting materials. We have library boards and school boards made up of personnel who are able to make the decisions for the general public, not just a very vocal minority. What you or someone else might deem appropriate for your family is likely very different from mine. Taxpayer dollars are for everyone. You say that you want to protect, he said that he wanted to protect children, and you certainly can under the current system without needing to ban books. You've already heard some of the things that the libraries are doing to protect access. You restrict access to certain titles. You as a parent have every right to control what your child reads. And you can by setting boundaries with them, by communicating with them and helping them explore the issues to which they have questions in their lives. That's part of your responsibility as a parent. The library might have materials that would help them understand things about their lives with which they don't feel comfortable sharing with you. We hear today about today's salacious and violent news coverage. What are parents doing about that? Are they banning cable news? Yes. YouTube, some of you, but maybe not everybody. Can you guarantee that children and teens are not already being normalized to violence and sex, not just by books that they might happen upon in the library? How do you protect children and teens in your household? Just because you approve or disapprove of something does not mean you get to restrict it for everyone else. Public libraries have been an important part of my life. My child, my only child, took her first steps across the public library in Houston, Texas. And every time I move to a community, that's about the third thing I do after my voter registration card, paying my utilities, I get my library card. I want it to be a place where I feel safe, where I can find the materials that I need to learn about how to be a better citizen and live in this world. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us this time to talk. Freedom of speech is the First Amendment of the Constitution.
Name and
Oh, sorry. Liz Ibbotson, 107 Baker Lake in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Freedom of speech is the First Amendment to the Constitution. All Americans have this right. And I personally would fight to the death to protect this right for all Americans. All Americans have the right to raise their children as they see fit. I have no right to impose my values on anyone, and thus no one has the right to impose their values on me. I am sure that we all believe that we have raised our children to reflect those values to which we raised them. If we truly believe that statement, then allowing our children the freedom to see or hear those values the parents do not agree with should not be frightening. It should be an opportunity to discuss and reinforce the values one wants their children to have. And therefore, I agree with the board's process that they currently have. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matthew Bond. I'm with Christ the King Baptist Church in Clinton, Tennessee. And I want to thank my mother first and foremost for the eclectic readership that she instilled in each of her children. Currently, our library back home numbers in excess of 10,000 books, and it's everything from the first printing of Jungle Book to Dad's nuclear criticality safety textbooks. And she was very diligent in instilling us a desire to learn, a desire to know. And one of the first things she did was teach us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and that He is the one who gives us true life and true understanding. There are so many things around us that are trying to misinform us, trying to lead us in a way that is profitable to them but leads to our own death. And people have been corrupted by the devil to think the way that leads to life, there is a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof is death. The Nazis, yes, did ban books, but turns out we have banned Nazi books, and I'm very grateful for that. There was a German math problem that I did read in our library. That was an example. It wasn't the whole math book printed by the Nazi Germans, but it is basically saying if a plane takes off with weighing 10,000 kilograms and it drops a payload of bombs on Warsaw, mentioning out loud to the students that this was the Jewish capital in Europe, and then it lands weighing 5,000 kilograms, how heavy was the payload of bombs dropped on the Jews? And what they were doing is normalizing atrocity. Friends, there is a path that leads to death, and we've been given one road that leads to life. This comes by faith, and this comes by reading the Word and letting God speak to you. The Bible and the Christian faith is unique as opposed to the Nazi faith, as opposed to the other faiths in the world, where they demand that either all ways are right or their way alone is right, and they won't even give a word of a peep. You try to speak about freedom of speech in Iran, and you might have to answer to a firing squad. It is the Christian doctrine, the Christian faith, the Christian foundation of this nation and other nations like it that began the understanding of freedom of speech, because Christianity was the one faith that had the guts to say, I will hold these views in open forum like this, and I'm willing for the world to come at me with the devil's best reasoning and present a better option. If you remove the Christian Foundation, that includes removing the warning signs, which the Christian Foundation has said, this will kill you. If you remove that and say, we will stand on our own ground, you'll find yourself becoming the very intolerant persecutors that you are blaming us to be. Thank you.
My name is Aspen Wilson. I'm from Clinton, Tennessee. The nature of books is always a concern to parents. That much I can empathize with, especially in a day of easily accessible internet and information. We worry more than ever what our children are being exposed to. I would like to make a plea, however, that eliminating books with certain topics is not the answer to any present concern among parents. Sexual topics are notoriously uncomfortable for parents to approach in any shape or form. From the birds and the bees talk to finding your child with unsavory material, it is never an easy subject to breach. I would like to stress the importance of many of these books to children and even parents in the pursuit of comprehensive and appropriate sexual education. Quoting the American Public Health Association, the American Public Health Association has asserted that all young people need the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to avoid HIV, other sexually transmitted infections, and unintended pregnancy so that they can become sexually healthy adults. As this topic is commonly underexplained in both households and in schools, public libraries are a great way for students to take initiative to learn about sex and related topics in a safe and constructive way. I'd like to address some of the specific books that have been called into question. It's Perfectly Normal, being the first one. It's Perfectly Normal is actually a book I saw as a child, and I can assure you it's far from a pornographic piece of literature. To say this book, a child-appropriate informational book on sexual urges, sexual anatomy, and puberty is inappropriate, is to say that our bodies and bodily functions are inherently inappropriate. It is of my view that this outlook on our bodies is more damaging to children and teens than the presented books could ever be. If indeed God created our bodies, then why should we be ashamed about learning about our bodies and their functions, including that of the reproductive system? Genderqueer is another one. Genderqueer is a book I can see concerns with, not for its themes of homosexuality or gender incongruence, but for picture displays surrounding sexual acts. I argue that while perhaps not appropriate for the children's section at a public library, there should be no issue relocating it to an adult section. Currently at the Clinton Public Library, a book such as 50 Shades of Grey is available for checkout according to the online catalog. If a piece of erotic fiction is allowed in our libraries funded by taxpayer dollars, why can't a memoir about someone's life, identity, and experience be allowed? Let's Talk About It is the last one I'd like to address. Let's Talk About It is a sexual education book for teens and adults presented in a graphic novel format. I've seen it described as pornographic, encouraging of underage sex and sexting, and encouraging of homosexuality and transsexualism. I must present a question. What is wrong with teenagers learning to have sex? An analogy I commonly use when discussing comprehensive sex education is that of assembling furniture. If your child really wants to build a cabinet they got from IKEA, wouldn't you, no matter how you as a parent feel about it, wouldn't you rather they have an instruction manual rather than trying to build it by guessing? Not understanding our bodies.
My name is Charles Colburn, and I live on Robin Lane out in the boonies of Clinton. And I come tonight concerned about this. Of course, as a parent, I'm a Christian conservative, and I want to say this to the folks that are sitting around where I sat down. I love each and every one of you. If I didn't, I'm breaking God's commandment. Christ commanded us to love our neighbors. We're all neighbors. Whether we like it or not, we're stuck. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I thank God that I grew up in the late 40s and 50s and very early 60s. We didn't have any of this stuff going on. We didn't have shootings in schools. Us boys carried knives to elementary school. And then when we went out on the playground, we played games with the knives. Nobody ever cut anybody. There were fights, but nobody ever pulled a knife or a gun. And I think that the way society is today, our kids are growing up with a whole different set of values. We went to church, most people did, and those that didn't respected the preachers that were around and stuff like that. Today, there's no respect for most preachers, for most people. It's just, we have lost our way. Now, I have one grandson that's still in elementary school. I have a great-granddaughter that's 1 year old, and we've got another grandbaby, a great-grandbaby on the way. For them, I stand. This stuff should not be available to children. Now, when I heard this the first time, what I heard was that they were asked, the library board was asked to move the books in the library to a section where little kids couldn't get it. And they flat out said no. Now, with that attitude, how are we going to come together on a resolution? That's not going to fly. And, you know, I mean, I would have it that everybody here would accept Jesus Christ as their Savior. And that, you know, you would give your life to Him. And when you do, it makes a difference. I wasn't no goody two-shoes when I was a kid. And I went to a different church than what I go to now. But when I finally got saved at 27 years of age, it made all the difference in the world, and it can make a difference to you too.
But I know everybody wants to clap, but you're cutting somebody, the people at the end of the list are not going to get to speak if we keep slowing down. So just, there's not an applause-meter. Nobody's going to win at the clapping, so just stop it. There's another Chuck H., and I don't know, I think we got, Mr. Colburn got his name, Chuck Holman, William Templeton, Ann Backus, Jonathan too. And I think there's some confusion. There's the three books that we looked at that were in the children's section, Families Like Mine, Granddad's Camper, what was it? It Feels Good to Be Yourself. Those three were in the children's section. The books with the illustrations that I think everybody's thinking about, Gender Queer and Let's Talk About It, those have always been in the adult section and adult nonfiction the entire time they've been in the library. So I think people are kind of conflating the two. No, they're not. No. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get back.
Chuck Hilliard, 2805 Tallgrass Lane, Knoxville. I just want to thank everybody for being here up front. I know this is probably not something everybody thinks about when they think about being on a library board, right? Sitting in front of
Knoxville?
Knoxville, yes.
Knoxville.
I have a library card
for Clinton.
Yeah.
Let's come back around to you real quick because I'm trying to get county residents.
Understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Will Templeton, 3325 West Wolf Valley Road, Clinton. Just want to address a couple of the comments that I've heard so far and just the LGBTQ plus culture in general. I've heard comments like nobody has a right to impose their values on us. The only thing I would say to that are what are laws? Laws are imposed values, and they're imposed by a majority. Other comments such as things are scary outside your worldview and you need to just go explore. Some things are just too icky for some people. So I would ask, okay, well, how icky is too icky? If we're talking about values, how scary is too scary? Everybody has a standard that they are trying to hold to when they try to answer those questions. So let's not pretend like standards don't exist for morality. Another comment, an individual does not get to determine whether or not something is obscene. That just goes back to what I was speaking with about laws and imposed values. It's not whether somebody's values are imposed on us, it's whose values are imposed. And that's where I get into the LGBTQ plus community. Inherent in the name is that it can add on anything it wants. It's not a defined standard. It's an indefinable standard, and it actually tends toward an anything goes kind of anarchy. I believe what is understood as or paraded as freedom of speech is many times just this anything goes anarchy in guise. And that does not belong in a public place, a public library. We're talking about a place that ought to be safe for children. Some of the standards for the library that are published online, as the director mentioned, is public demand and relevance to the community interests and needs, professional reviews, content and authority and effectiveness of presentation. So just end with this. So content and authority. Are we talking about authority like my friend Jeremy mentioned, like Dr. Money? Are we going to rely on that kind of authority for our standard of morality, a man who is a pedophile? Or are we going to rely on standards outside of ourselves that are higher than us, that have been laid down through the ages, the old paths? People have talked about the scriptures, talked about the Bible, talked about Jesus Christ himself. He said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through me. And I think we need to start listening to his word and not to our own opinions. Thank you.
Ann Backus, 130 Wyndham Road, Oak Ridge. I am a library user, and I actually checked 2 books out at midnight last night, ebooks, so I am a voracious reader. I would like to express my appreciation to the librarians and the library board for providing a collection that meets the needs of all the residents of Anderson County. We are so lucky to have this resource in our community. Libraries help parents provide books for themselves and their children. I know that I, who had a really good job out at Y-12, could not have afforded to buy all the books my children and I read when they were young. I depend on the library even now. I know there are some people who are objecting to a few books in our libraries, most of which are identified as not for minors or minor restricted. There are books in our library that I would not read or let my children read. The Bible of Combat Arms would be one of them. While I do not want to read these books, I want them available for those that are interested. I ask you to give the same courtesy to others in our community. Again, thank you, librarians, for all your hard work to make sure everyone in our community feels welcome and seen.
Hi, my name is John 320 Maple Street in Clinton. Isn't this great? I mean, God's common grace. We are all here civilly. I mean, we're all giving our views. I think this is a wonderful thing, and I thank the library board and Chairman Josh Anderson that you guys took the time out to do this, because I know you guys didn't have to, so thank you. One of the earlier gentlemen said, no books should ever be banned. How to molest a 5-year-old? Should that be banned? 6 steps to a successful school shooting. Should that be banned? Some people are boys, some girls, some people are both, some people are neither. So another person said, I think it was your husband, library director, that libraries are to spread information and improve people's lives. Is spreading information that leads to violence, wickedness, confusion, and illogical ideas improving people's lives? Another person said no one should impose their values on anyone, but the judge of the universe will judge every thought and deed, and each of us will stand before him. And I, as his slave, admonish you all, repent, have your mind changed, and agree with Christ the King and experience life, the abundant life. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Turn to the source of joy, for in his presence is fullness of joy. This is the same Lord who has said that homosexuality is an abomination, that lust after another is committing adultery in the heart. The reason I believe some of these books needs to be taken out of the library is because they're an outright attack against my King, the Lord and maker of heaven and earth that he has designed. He is the only wise God. He is the one who made every single person in this room, and because of that is worthy of our worship and obedience. When the King of Kings says that he created man, actual man, in his own image, in the image of God, he created him, male, actual male, and female, actual females, he created them. He also said, wives, real wives, submit to your husbands, real husbands. As to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their husbands. Husbands, love your wives, as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with his word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing. Praise God.
We can stop interrupting, we can stop clapping, or we can adjourn the meeting. What are we going to do? Okay? Next. Melanie Hutzel, Eli 2, Emmanuel Calva, Laura LaPrade.
Thank you. I'm Eli too from 320 Maple Street. Thank you. I'm in the army of God, fighting for the will of Christ. Many brothers from Christ the King Church, Clinton, Tennessee, are here to speak tonight. Concerning the 14 books about gender identity, they should be destroyed. The library standard needs to be changed. The only good standard is God's standard. Even the county commission board didn't want to see the books that someone was showing. My dad, John, too, did submit 2 forms for it is good to be a boy and it is good to be a girl. And Mrs. Meyer rejected them because there were no reviews, and she didn't know the author. Miss Meyer, families are important. That's why we want to abolish these books. And Martin Luther, he burned the letters of the Pope. Everything without God is evil. If our God is with us, nothing can stand against us. Miss Myra, you said we should ask you the questions. So I ask you, what is your standard?
No, you need to keep that, you need to keep the discussion. We mentioned earlier, Ms. Webb put where the collection development policy is available online, right? And that's how all 4 directors use the collection development policy. They don't use their, it's not personal opinion. There's guidelines. That's where all the books were bought under. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Good evening. Emmanuel Calva, 917 Loy Street, Clinton. I spoke at the first library board meeting back in February about literacy and how none of these books promote that. The LGBT movement has normalized the erasure of biological binary. The sexual age binary is the next challenge. It matters. Radical gender ideology at its goal is the queering of norms that are foundational to healthy societies. So any true queer theory proponent in this room would say this. We need to deconstruct all social binaries, male versus female, heterosexual versus homosexual, nature versus culture. To accomplish this, all human constructed boundaries must be transgressed with freedom, without consequences. Radical gender ideology is accomplished through the manipulation of language. In this case, it's books. Books accessible to children. Thus, the manipulation and message is, well, a woman is no longer an adult human female, but anyone who feels that he or she is a woman. Queer theory has tried to normalize the erasure of biological binary, but normalization makes the sex boundary pushers restless. The sexual age binary is the next challenge. Advocates for pedophilia now coined into a more modest term, MAPS, minor attracted persons. Radical gender theorists, they created a useful infrastructure. School curriculum, LGBT clubs, gay books at your local libraries, drag queen story hour, etc. I'm a former teacher in Southern California. I've seen that. The fight is this. The drive is to shift the rules for discussion from a morally based standard or paradigm to a science paradigm. These books have an agenda. Remove the books that promote queer, radical, gender, wickedness from the children's section.
My name is Laura LaPrade. I live at 111 Cherry Oak Drive in Oak Ridge. I'm not here tonight to indoctrinate anyone with an activist agenda or to deconstruct any social binaries. I'm here as the parent of a child who has questions about her identity and how she fits in the world. In this room, I know we disagree about a lot, clearly, and especially y'all have different parenting approaches. I think that's good, that's healthy, that's part of community. I think one thing that we can agree on for all the parents who are in this room is that we want our children alive. And I very much want my child alive. And I can say that the past few times I've been part of this conversation, I've had a very small window into the world my child is walking into. And it's my job to instill in her an innate sense of self-worth so that when she goes out into the world, she knows who she is fully and has full confidence in that. I can't do that on my own. I can't give her that on my own. And that's one way that books and some of the books that are under discussion have been a tool for our family so that I can teach her how to be whole and how to love herself and how to be safe. I also just want to address that just some clarifications as far as some of the resources that I've seen passed around. I know some of the information in the packet came from booklooks.org, and I wanted to share BookLook's own stated mission. First and foremost, our mission is to inform parents on what is in these books being made available to children in schools. And they go on to say any books that may be excluded from school libraries would still be available in public libraries or in stores for interested students to procure with parental consent. I think that's an important distinction because school libraries are a very different conversation. Our public libraries serve adults as well as children, and they have protocols in place. They have options for shelving books in adult sections, which we have seen them make those decisions to do, which gives me confidence that they are doing what they can to protect our children. And then finally, I just want to add that I'm not going to argue theology here. I'll just say, hey, I love Jesus too. I love Jesus too, y'all. No community is a monolith, and that includes our faith communities. And so anyone asking to remove these books in the name of God does not speak for me. Thank you so much for your time.
Commissioner Anthony Allen, Deborah Perkey, Wendell Schrock.
Anthony Allen, Commissioner, 6th District, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It has come to the attention of the great parents and citizens of Anderson County, Tennessee, that their tax dollars are being used to promote the sexual lifestyles and sexual proclivities of LGBTQAI and PFLAG. The Bible says no one knows what goes on between a man and a woman behind closed doors. In other words, it is none of anyone's business. However, the great parents and citizens of Anderson County have a vested interest to know what goes on behind any closed door a child is behind. And that closed door includes the doors of the taxpayer-funded Anderson County libraries. The great parents and citizens have opened the door of taxpayer-funded Anderson County libraries, and they have found, commingled with the children, books that are sexually graphic and sexually obscene. These books can only be described as porn and smut in children's books. The excuse for ordering, displaying, and shelving very disturbing sexual materials targeting children and paid for by tax dollars is this. The excuse is children can get it from the internet. Well, children can get alcohol and cigarettes from the internet too. But Anderson County taxpayers do not open up liquor stores and tobacco stores for children because they can get it from the internet. Also, parental rights and community standards are not subsumed or taken over by LGBTQAI and PFLAG because children can get porn and smut on the internet. Across America and the great state of Tennessee, legislation has been enacted to prevent the ideology of far-left entities such as LGBTQAI, PFLAG, CRT, Black Lives Matter, and Antifa from trampling parental rights and lowering community standards. In Board of Education versus PICO, the U.S. Supreme Court justices allow books that are pervasively vulgar and educationally unsuitable to be removed. The books found in some taxpayer-funded Anderson County libraries teach children how to masturbate with graphic pictures and descriptions. They provide images of people engaging in sex, pictures of children exposing themselves, and depictions of men with female genitalia and women with male genitalia. They also encourage young children to question their gender, suggesting that they may be male, female, or they may be neither male or female, or at the same time, they can be both male and female. These books and books like them are pervasive.
We're out of time, sorry.
These books.
Can you state your resident or your home
Yeah.
address, not the church address?
I'm not from this county.
When somebody tripped over the cord and it knocked the bulb.
We've got the.
Keep this cool off and I'll try and get
We've got it on the computer screen, so we're keeping
It's right
time.
here, right? I can turn it around.
I'm a member of Christ the King. I'm not from this county.
Well, we're trying to get to all the Anderson County
Okay.
residents, so let me
Thank
get to
you.
Miss Perky first. Deborah Perky? She's not here, okay. Miss Riley? Amy Riley?
It's,
Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, if you don't live in Anderson County, we're really trying to get to county residents. Rachel Whiteside? Tucker? No, Lord. Carissa Owensby? Carissa Owensby, Rachel Whiteside, Joel Hewitt, Ann Garcia. Go ahead. Just state your name and address, please.
You ready?
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Rachel Whiteside. I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm definitely very nervous. But I am a resident here in Clinton, and I am a mother, and I have two children. I grew up here, went to Clinton Elementary, Clinton Middle School, Clinton High School, the University of Tennessee, and I just wanted to come out here today and speak. And today, I know that we have heard much about the banning of books. I would like to suggest that there is really no such thing as banning books, not in today's digital age. Every book can be rented, checked out, or purchased online somewhere.
What?
The books in our libraries can be accessed on Libby, an online library source. None of these books that we're even talking about today are currently banned. The issue at hand is, what does the community want purchased for our children with our tax dollars and placed in a public space? Is comic books with students shooting teachers acceptable? Is instructions on how to perform certain sexual acts acceptable? Is pornographic images acceptable? Because I was shocked to find out that our Clinton Library across the street carries those books. Where do we draw the line? The issue tonight isn't about imposing religious beliefs on the community or about opposing the LGBTQ community. It's simply not wanting pornographic and obscene materials in our libraries. And I do want to say, if you remember a couple of years ago, the Dr. Seuss books that were banned, that the publishers completely stopped publishing, you can't even get those now. That is banning books. Parental rights need to also be considered on this issue as well. I've been to a few of the library meetings, and I heard some parents say that they want their children to have access to these books. But there are other parents here that don't want their children to have access to these books. The common solution has been offered. Parents just need to watch their kids, their children, and not let them get a hold of those books. This simply is not a solution. The library is a public space purchased with taxpayer dollars, open for anyone and everyone to access. Every parent should feel that their child is safe when they enter the library. They should expect their children to not be exposed to obscene or mature concepts that children have no business being exposed to so soon. There is a value in maintaining the innocence of children. Studies show exposure to sexualized behaviors and exposing children to mature themes can cause mental turmoil in an already challenging time of development. There are numerous, and I mean numerous, other age-appropriate methods of teaching children about sex. A parent has a right to choose when and how when this concept is taught. Accidentally being exposed in a public, unsupervised area is not the answer.
Hey, guys, we've got a timekeeper here, okay? We're letting this cool off. We got it, okay?
Sorry. Hi, my name is Carissa Oimby, and I live on Pine Street in Clinton. Every great library has something to offend everyone. Public libraries are there to stretch the imagination, further understanding, provide an array of educational materials, and build a collection for a diverse population. People do not agree on every matter, as we've seen here tonight, live the same lifestyle, or have the same beliefs, and the libraries in this county have diligently worked to ensure that everyone that walks through the door finds something to appeal to them. Book banning is running rampant in a country that was supposed to have been built on freedom. When someone is trying to ban books, even if they claim that is not what they are doing, there are always ulterior motives fueling their agenda, often to exclude and alienate select groups of citizens. They toss out labels and falsities for shock factor to further drive an agenda, limit rights of all citizens, and continue targeting the specific group. It is sad for book banning to still be a topic in 2023 when there are so many examples throughout history as to why this is detrimental to society. There are books in the libraries that I do not agree with or do not find interest in as well, but I understand there may be someone else with a different view and lifestyle that will find them beneficial to have access to. Everyone has the right not to check out and read the materials you do not agree with. No one should have the right to control what others read. For those claiming these books will help kids choose to be gay or trans, you are misunderstanding a group of people who have largely been misrepresented and underrepresented, many of whom who would be willing to share with you how important representation is and how it saves lives. Public libraries allow people of all incomes to be able to access books, including educational resources, which include sex education, another controversial topic with many different opinions and approaches, thus leading to a multitude of viewpoints among different publications. As to the continual argument about tax money, there are many things my tax money goes to that I'd prefer it not to. That is part of being a taxpayer. Tennessee has held a large part of history in striving for equality, from helping to pass the 19th Amendment to East Tennessee leading the way with desegregation. As a native Tennessean, it has been heart-wrenching to see us seemingly step back in time to when not everyone was treated equally. This country was founded on freedom, and that prominently includes religious freedom. It is appalling to see so many elected officials disregarding this major element within our Constitution and ignoring the diverse constituents they are meant to represent. Emphasizing one religion and deeming all other beliefs and lifestyles as not worthy of representation should not be a leading factor in this county. Luckily, our library board and librarians have continued to maintain an open mind and ensure our public libraries maintain a diverse collection so that everyone is welcome and represented. Thank you to the library board and the librarians for persevering these last few months and courageously upholding the public library standards to build a wonderful collection for a diverse group of patrons It is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, that's fine. Joel, or, I'm sorry, Ann
Garcia.
Ann Garcia, okay.
120 Outer Drive, Oak Ridge. Small corrections. The Dr. Money experiment was exposed completely as a hoax in 1997 by a scientist in Hawaii. The book criticized as being a student shooting a teacher is a science fiction comic in which the teacher is an evil alien. And it's sort of like Harry Potter and his friends defeating the Dark Lord. When I was a child, I read every fairy tale book in the county library 7 times before I was 10 years old. It took 40 years for me to overcome the lessons they taught me about how girls were supposed to act and think. There are plenty of books in the libraries that I'm not going to read, and I'm not going to like a lot of people who think they're wonderful books. That's okay. We're a diverse country, and we should be tolerant. I'm a heterosexual, white, Christian woman, but I gotta say, I don't feel very loved by a lot of people claiming that Christians of some particular stripe own the moral victory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Joel Hewitt. I live on Virginia Road in Oak Ridge. I can appreciate the impulse behind this meeting. I really can. We need to protect our kids. When I think about protecting the children in Anderson County, I think first of the fact that Anderson County is 50th among the counties in Tennessee in health outcomes. Even worse for child and teen deaths per 100,000 people. I also think that child poverty rate in Anderson County is 17.5%. That's actually a little bit better in terms of the counties in our state. More germane to this discussion, between 3rd and 8th grade reading proficiency in Anderson County, our reading proficiency rate is 30%. So for those who are concerned about children elementary to middle school finding these books or the Bible or Thomas the Tank Engine, shouldn't have to worry too much because a lot of them won't be able to read them to proficiency. One other quick point, Mr. Chairman, I'm sure that some people in this room are familiar with what's called the Streisand effect. This dates from 2003. Barbara Streisand, a photo was taken of her mansion on the coast in California. She wanted that photo removed, took some sort of actions to get it removed, and the outcome being that this photo is now posted millions and millions of times online. It's everywhere. Now, it's a little bit different than what was discussed before of all these materials, may or may not be available online to children, but I feel pretty confident that the children in Anderson County are aware that there's a big adult hullabaloo going on today, and that there's a lot of inflamed passions. And so if a goal was to reduce children's interest in these important issues, I think that has failed. In fact, I think that has backfired. Thank you very much.
Melissa Brown, Allison Wolf, Tim Isabel.
Josh and the board, thank you. My name is Melissa Brown. I live on Dusty Lane in Claxton. As this lovely lady said, I sat here and listened, and I was prepared to talk to you about this flyer that I'm sure you've all seen. I'm not sure if you have seen. It landed in my inbox. It is from the Republican Party, and it says that Anderson County, like many areas across the country, is experiencing a crisis in child trafficking and internet predation. And so when I went to look to find data to support that, I came across a 2022 study done by Covenant Health, among other organizations in our county. It was a 5-month study. It used 300 candidates and some some, what are they called? Groups of people, that come together. Yeah, thanks. Focus groups. And they found out that in rank order, the 10 most severe problems facing Anderson County based on responses to these focus groups and these individuals were lack of affordable housing, substance abuse, poverty, mental illness, youth tobacco use and vaping, access to mental health care, reliable and affordable transportation, lack of physical activity, diabetes, and lack of good paying jobs. And when I went and looked in our library, there are 1,014 resources available on those topics. So we have quite a few resources to actually combat real issues, not this issue which did not come up in their study. But now, in my last minute, I want to say that as a lifelong community, and I'm really getting choked up, community member of Clinton, raised by Christian parents who are still married to each other after 54 years, I'm feeling like that day that I chose not to jump off the bridge, the tattoo that I have that says I should have chosen life, is maybe not what I should have chosen here in my own community. Because the things that are being said here in the name of Jesus Christ, which, by the way, Josh, I know you and I have talked, I know you care, but really you don't have to because you're a county commissioner. We're not friends, we don't hang out. The things that are being said here, religion is really private. That's between me and my God. But, yes, thank you. I am feeling like I need to be erased along with everyone else in the LGBT community, along with all of the books. We are not wanted, we are not appreciated, and no one wants to read our stories. So this is causing a lot of damage. And I'm a 53-year-old woman who can take care of her damn self, not a teenager or young adult who is still questioning or needing support. So we have a huge problem that's bigger than books. And I would like the library board and our
Allison Wolf.
Okay, I'm Allison Wolf. I'm from Oak Ridge. At the beginning of many public meetings, we pledge allegiance to the United States, one nation under God. That's right. We are one nation, and right here, one county, one community, all of us. Christian, Jewish, Muslim, atheist, pagan, straight, gay, bisexual, cis, trans, we are one. Yes. I pledge my allegiance to my nation, to my community, not only to the Christians within it, but to everyone else as well. This whole flap started because someone wanted to challenge children's books with same-sex couples in them. Books that merely describe the families some children in this county have. It's moved to attacking accurate, non-judgmental books on sex education for teens, and books that represent teens living through difficult situations. I stand here today to defend our children's access to accurate information about the world around them. Not only to what some denominations of Christians think is the ideal. Over and over on this list, I see a theme in the books up for challenge. That theme is that you are not alone. This message can be life-changing or even life-saving to the kids that need to hear it, particularly for the ones who find themselves the targets of pundits and politicians who wish to divide us. It is hard to feel like a part of our one nation, our one community, when you witness those who are supposed to educate and protect you, making it clear that they wish you weren't a part of it. We are one nation, one county, one community. Let's act like it. We should refuse to comply with those who want to ban books that do not portray their ideal, those who are attempting to say that this county is for them alone. Let's be one nation, indivisible. I see the rest of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anderson County Commissioner Tim Isbell, I represent District 4. I just want to acknowledge Daphne and Kelly. They're the librarians in my district, and they're always willing to listen and talk to anybody and work with anybody. I think they do a great job. Like yourself, in 2010, 2011, I served on the library board as their commissioner and know the things that you go through and learned then that we can't ban books, but we can ask for restrictions and have them put somewhere else. When I grew up in the Leave It to Beaver, Andy Griffith era. In comic books, you went and you read the comic books because it was good versus evil. Archie Andrews and Veronica, it was about the teenagers dealing with things that go on in school, and they always dealt with their teachers and faculty with great respect, no matter what the outcome was. And even before today's unfortunate happening in Nashville, what I wanted to talk about was one of the books that's on the list, and it's called Assassination Classroom. The book summary is a group of students who attempt to kill their alien teacher who's teaching them how to become assassins. Summary of concerns: this book contains explicit violence, mild profanity, and sexual activities. And then when you go over just the illustrations, on page 7, the illustration on this page depicts a classroom full of young students is shown with guns aimed towards the front of the classroom. Page 8, Class 1 killing time in homeroom. The illustration on this page depicts several students with guns aimed toward a teacher in the front of the room. The teacher's an alien wearing a cap and gown. 9, the illustration of this page depicts a zoomed-in profile of a hand holding a handgun. The word "start" is written in front of the barrel of the gun with arrow pointing in the direction away from the barrel. 10, the illustration on top of the page depicts several young individuals with various types of guns pointing in one direction. The words "get ready" are written in large letters. And this goes on and on and on about this, and it's graphic about the shooting. And it's got the noises and things in there. But this is one of the books that is of concern. And like I said, I'm a Christian conservative, Anderson County Commissioner, and I try to represent my people to what they ask me. And this is what they ask me. Thank you.
It's in that list. It's not had a challenge. Hannah Oren, Ellen Faby, Todd Waterman, Linda Morell.
Hi, my name is Hannah Oren. I live on Radisson Cove in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And I just would like to address some things that have been said about my community. I do belong to the LGBTQ community, and I'm also a Christian. I didn't grow up with any contact with any LGBTQ material at all. Nothing. My favorite authors growing up, I loved Laura Ingalls Wilder, read Catherine Marshall. I was basically raised in church, mostly under my own free will because I loved Jesus so much. And my little sister was exposed to that kind of material when she was younger, and she is not dating a woman like I am. Let me see. And if you think this gender thing is kind of like a new thing that's coming up, a new social craze that's being passed around, you need to read more books, because The Descent of Inanna is Sumerian poetry that is older than the Bible. It displays non-binary characters. The Talmud itself, which is another piece of Jewish religious text, has 6 genders in it. This is not a new thing. People are just tired of being in the closet, and I'm frankly tired of the way that my community treats me, the way they make assumptions about me and say things like I need to find Jesus. I think that is not a very Christian thing to say. So I would like to go ahead and just say, if you think all this is new, you need to read, and the only thing my sister ever learned from these books that have LGBTQ characters in it was to love people that were not like herself, and she is one of the most Christian people I know, and I wish that I grew up reading that stuff too, honestly. And honestly, having access to that stuff when I was younger could have helped me through a lot of rough times. Like, I tried to kill myself because of the way that I felt about myself and how bad I felt liking women, growing up being very Christian, feeling like God hates me, God who is supposed to be love. And I have learned to accept myself, and I have a very close personal relationship with Jesus, and it's none of your guys' business what that is like. And I would really like to discourage anyone else coming up here and using the Bible to, bash other books being there, because if the Bible's the only book you read, why do you need a library? Thank you.
I'm Ellen Faby. I live on Orchard Knob in Marlow. Thank you for the opportunity to express my opinion tonight. I have several main points to express. First, the issue of removing certain books from the libraries has been framed as a concern for protecting children. Well, I have great news for parents. The policies and procedures of the library system give parents the ability to fully protect their children. Children under 11 must be accompanied by a parent, and parents can control what books their children access and what books they check out. For older children, the library also allows parents to contact the library and put restrictions on what their children can check out. However, parental rights do not extend to other people's children. Removing books from our libraries deprives other parents and their children access to diverse perspectives and educational materials. Second, let's look at the role of beliefs. I believe that violence is glorified in our society and that violent movies and video games are bad. However, I recognize that that is my opinion, not an objective fact, and that I do not have the right to restrict other people's access to movies and video games. Our Constitution protects violent video games and movies, and it also protects books. Our great country has been built by people with a wide diversity of backgrounds and beliefs, and we have thrived because of our diversity. Third, we hire our librarians for their expertise. They comply with all laws. They follow a specific process for selecting books for our libraries. The selection process is publicly available. As far as I know, they try to select a wide range of books and materials so that they can serve all people in Anderson County. I commend the professional librarians and library staff and the library board for their dedication to making our libraries a welcoming place for all patrons and a place where each and every person can find appropriate materials, whether they want to learn something new or just be entertained. Thank you.
Todd Waterman, 418 Orchard Knob Road. We're all here because we want what's best for us and our children. Parents are understandably concerned their or others' kids would be harmed by reading what they might find in the 11 and up children's ed section, albeit not without a library card signed off on by their parent. But it's the countries that offer the best sex education that have the fewest unintended pregnancies, STD cases, unwanted children, and abortions. Our kids can't make wise decisions or trust us unless we provide them with all the facts. We're all taxed to support our public libraries. Shouldn't they have books for all of us? The book, It's Perfectly Normal, is clearly intended not to arouse, but to support and inform 10 to 12-year-olds. I wish I'd been able to read it when I was 10. I'm still learning some of what it has to teach about safe, respectful sex. Reading it would have beat the hell out of my friends and I trying to figure out sex with no help from our parents, advised only by our desperate hormones and macho movies. It appears that for many, discussing gay and trans sex along with straight sex is what makes a book pornography, a starkly bigoted criterion. The Constitution guarantees minority rights, equal protection under the law, because majority rule is otherwise tyranny. Gay and trans kids are already a terribly persecuted minority. Many kill themselves. A book might be a child's only accepting friend. And blaming anyone, let alone a child, for who they were born to be is cruelly harmful. My physiological psychology textbook made it clear gay and trans kids, just like straight kids, are pretty much born that way. So it's physiologically impossible for anyone to groom your child into becoming gay or trans or straight. But if I had a pubescent child, I'd be terrified for them to be alone with another child, unless both had read a book like It's Perfectly Normal. As an artist, I know beauty exists only in the eye of the beholder, not in a painting or book. It's an emotional reaction. A book you find disgusting, I may find inspiring, and vice versa. Condemning LGBTQ plus folks in the name of the man who transformed the sometimes harsh Old Testament into Christianity by preaching unconditional love and exalting the disenfranchised seems to me not Christian but cruel. And the founding fathers couldn't agree on religion, so they wisely forbade the establishment of religion. Thank you.
Linda Morell.
I'm Linda Morell from Windhaven Lane in Oak Ridge, and
Pull the microphone down if you can.
I agree with the previous speaker, and I commend our librarians on following their procedures. And my concern is I want us to learn, I want us to work this out without banning books. I'm afraid if you succeed in banning these books, what books are you going to ban next? Thank you.
Okay, next we got Mary Nepper, Tammy Mellon, Sid Brewer, Jan Van Dyne.
Thank you, Board. I'm Mary Nepper from Andersonville. I have a few notes, and a lot of them parallel what has been said, but I can stick to 3 minutes. First, I support our librarians, their policies, their ethics, their professionalism, their creativity, their care in categorizing books for appropriate audience, and their invitation to every person in our community to enjoy what a library offers, so thank you. Number 2, I support knowledge. Pornography is not knowledge, it's not its intent. Education is what the intent of these books is. And knowledge doesn't kill children, guns do. Guns are the #1 cause of death of our youth today, and that's a fact. Number 3, I support free access to information.
Excuse me.
Ma'am, different issue.
You got the floor, okay?
Don't take my time, please. The Chinese dictator and founder, and by the way, some of these things are from library readings. The Chinese dictator and founder of Chinese communism, Mao Zedong, said he never wanted his people to be too educated. He once said, to read too many books is harmful. Uninformed people can be bullied, he didn't say this, uninformed people can be bullied, misled, commandeered, brainwashed, and intimidated. We don't want that. Number 4, I support knowledge as the basis of true innocence. To be truly innocent is to choose the correct path based on an informed decision. To be without knowledge is not innocence, it's to be uninformed. And that's, if you read your William Blake, the English poet, mystic artist, said in his Songs of Innocence and Experience, it is to be ignorant. We don't like that term, but that's what he said. If no choice is made, no true innocence is achieved. We need the contrast. I support knowledge, which derives from contrast. If the world were all pink, we wouldn't understand blue. And that's philosopher Alfred North Whitehead. I support knowledge as the basis of our freedom and democracy. Thomas Jefferson said it requires an educated populace to support our democracy. It requires constant vigilance. I support acceptance and love. Denying acceptance and love foments despair and antisocial behavior, and we've heard that today. I support parents' care for their children, their decisions for their children, not all children. I support people reading books before they deny their value. I support telling the truth, not fear-mongering. I respectfully suggest to those who evangelize for Christ that the LGBTQ people do not evangelize for their lifestyle. They are not mimicking what you're doing. They simply want to be, just to live. None of us chooses our genetic makeup, our inherited code. It's a mystery. It's what we get in the package when we're born. And last, if the availability of a book in the library were indeed to sway the general public to its principles, all the Bibles in these libraries have not proven the point of where all of us would be more Christian in our treatment of our beloved neighbor. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Tammy Mellon, live in Andersonville, Tennessee. I've had 3 children go through Anderson County school systems. I've currently got a little 5-year-old granddaughter in kindergarten and a teenager, 14-year-old at Anderson County High School. I love our county and I love our schools. And I'm so thankful. We're living the greatest country in the world. And this proves it right here, that we can come and we can express our beliefs or what we think should happen. And that's wonderful. And thanks to everyone that came here today to express how they feel about this issue. Thanks to all of you all and our commissioners, because I know there's not one of you all that's not serving, that don't care about people, and that's why you're here, is because you want to serve and care about people, and we are thankful for that. This isn't an issue in my mind about any group's agenda. We have different beliefs and ideas in this room, but I believe every person in this room has a belief and desire to protect the minds and hearts of our children. There is nothing more beautiful than the innocence of a child. My little 5-year-old, when I sit and talk to her, and just the innocence and the beauty that she has in her thoughts and mind is wonderful. But I reviewed myself 10 books. I won't even mention them, and I had written down some stuff, and I'm not going to read it because there's children in the room, and I don't think that's appropriate. But I just really want to say, do we really want to encourage and teach that it's normal for children 10 to 17 years old to be sexually active? None of these books taught on abstinence that I read. They might have, but I missed that part. They taught normalcy of sexual activity between 10 and 17 years old, which, again, I don't agree with. 2 books called Tricks and Push go into explicit detail of sexual violence, abuse, rape, child molestation that could have horrible impact on a child's mind. And what if reading these acts could impress upon a confused child to go and perform these acts on another innocent child? It is a proven statistic that the pictures and graphic sexual details seen by a child can imprint on their minds, causing severe problems with future sexuality or addiction to pornography. Arguments for this belief education, y'all, there's a better way to educate our children on sex than what some of these books portray and teach. A gentler way to educate children. And every child's maturity is different, so when we have them in a public place and have that access to a child that's not mature enough to look at these books and these graphic things, it's very disturbing. People say, well, they're accessible on their cell phones or whatever, but that's a parent's choice. And then finally, anger's not the answer, not getting angry with each other. It's loving each other. You all are exactly right. And today on the TV, I heard a guy say, can we do something to save our children? Yes, we can. And we can try to protect our children. Thank you.
Lucas Heaton, Greg Smith, Becky Smith, Annette Flynn, Sid Brewer.
Thank you all. My name is Lucas Heaton. I live at 112 Wilson Avenue in Clinton. And I would like to start out by saying that our country was founded on the principle of no taxation without representation. Therefore, we, the people, elect governing officials which are paid with taxpayer dollars to represent us and our ideas. My question is to y'all, at what point did you and the library committee decide that it was okay to use taxpayer dollars to pay to buy child pornography books to put in the children's section of the library? And I would also like to remind y'all that in election season, y'all will be remembered and what y'all did and how y'all stood at the last commission meetings. Thank y'all.
Tonight's topic goes well beyond the book titles I think discussed at this and other meetings. Book banning and censorship hits at the very heart of our democracy by attacking our First Amendment right to free speech. I came this evening in support of free speech and of the library, Anderson County's process for the book review in our public libraries. I think you're doing a really great job. We've seen at recent meetings that books providing discussions on human sexuality can be uncomfortable and divisive. But it's just for this reason that we often need to have written resources available at our libraries for people of all ages to understand such an important topic. In the state of Tennessee, according to the CDC, the rate of teenage pregnancy in women between the ages of 16 and 19 is the 7th highest in the nation. Given that, it would seem to me that the programs taught in our schools with a legislated emphasis on abstinence might not be sufficient. Maybe having more resources available for parents and children to study together as they choose could help change the situation. Another aspect of the books under recent discussion is that they try to help children and others understand what being LGBTQ means, as well as helping them to understand themselves. Given that in a recent Gallup poll, over 20% of Gen Zers identify as LGBTQ, tools to learn more about oneself and this growing segment of society are important for our libraries to provide. In fact, what better use of our libraries than to provide resources to help us all understand one another with our similarities and our differences. Finally, once again, like others, I'd like to commend the library board, the librarians of Anderson County for your thoughtful reviews and your stewardship. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Becky Smith. I'm from Montana Avenue in Oak Ridge. Make this quick. First of all, I believe that book bans threaten intellectual freedom and suppress free speech. The public library is the one American institute that is tasked to protect the First Amendment and intellectual freedom. Book bans harm the most vulnerable, who don't have access to finances, time, or transportation to acquire a book that they need or would like to study on any topic. This censorship limits access and controls information available in our very diverse population. The Anderson County libraries have professionally educated staff that deserve to be respected and allowed to do their job. I fully support the library staff. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Annette Flynn. I live in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I too thank the library board and the librarians, and I trust you to do your job on my behalf as a taxpayer. There are things that I don't want done with my taxpayer money, but I pay taxes and try to live as a citizen in this community for the good of the whole. I believe that we are confusing being a good American with a good Christian, and the two are not the same. There is not a Bill of Rights in the Bible. I also love the Bible and love Jesus, and just want to remind us that as much as we would love, those of us who love Jesus love him and want others to love him too, but we're here as citizens of a community, a democracy, not primarily as people who want to impose immorality on other people. So that is what I wanted to lift up. And the last thing I want to say is I was raised in a home where intellectual activity was prized and held very high. There was Jesus, and then there was education. And God gave us an intellect. And I think we honor God when we use it, and we use our critical thinking to discern what is good for me to read, what do I want to learn. I am a mom and a grandma, and I care deeply about what my children and grandchildren are exposed to. Finally, I want to say to my queer siblings in this room, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry, and my heart breaks. Because I know that queer people love Jesus too, and that's all they want to do. Thank you.
Phyllis Alexander, Deborah Heaton, Myra Mansfield.
got hot in here. Good evening, I'm Phyllis Alexander. I live in Oak Ridge. My comments are about the importance of having racial representation in our books and not banning them. I think my observations are transferable to books about LGBTQIA communities. So, yesterday, I went to the Food Lion in my community. And I was walking toward the door, and there was a woman in front of me, and she had a shirt on, and her shirt said, "To the person behind me, you are amazing, beautiful, and enough." So I quickened my pace because I wanted to talk to her about her shirt. So I touched her on the shoulder, she turned around, and the front of her shirt said, "You matter." When we read books that have characters or situations that resonate with us, we feel seen. We feel we matter. We gain insights about our unique selves, about others, and the world. And this insight helps us navigate the world better. I have been a reader forever. I've prided myself on walking back in the library with books, my arm loaded with books. And I can remember like it was yesterday, a book I read several decades ago entitled The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. The protagonist was a dark-skinned black girl like me. I was a young adult when I read that book, and I finally felt seen after all the books I had read. I was able to understand the protagonist didn't feel like she was good enough because of what society said about the color of her skin. The book helped me understand the ramifications of internalizing that self-hate. The Bluest Eye was seminal to my ability to start a journey of developing a healthy sense of self, no matter what society says about me. And of course, that's one of the books that's on many banned book lists. Banning books means you're using the way you see the world to determine which books should be banned. My world, me, others who are different from the decision makers are not part of your calculation or your lens. You can only see through the lens that you have. I end up not mattering, whether that was your intent or not. I'll stop here because I see I don't have enough time to finish. But you get my point. Thank you.
My name is Deborah Heaton, and I live at 112 Wilson Avenue. As a mother and as a Christian, I feel that these books should be moved to a different section in the library. I oppose them being in the children's section. Thank you.
My name is Myra Mansfield. I live at 103 Hendricks Drive in Oak Ridge. I serve as the chairperson of the Republican Party in Anderson County. And no, this is not just a political issue in favor of Republicans, because I have spoken with Democrats who are opposed to these types of books in the library. Most of the citizens of this county share conservative values with the Republican Party. They have also elected conservative Republican officials to serve in Nashville. Those elected officials have brought us some of the finest legislation in the country. County governments are an extension of the state government. Tennessee's conservative values should guide decisions made about Anderson County's public libraries, because about 70% of the citizens here have conservative values. Last year, Governor Lee signed the new Age-Appropriate Materials Act. This law is aimed at protecting students from inappropriate materials in school libraries. It's my belief that local governments, especially Anderson County with our huge conservative majority, should align with Tennessee's conservative values, using the same language of Governor Lee's act as a guide. A system should be put into place to review and determine public library books as to whether they are appropriate. This is the language in his act. Appropriate for the age and maturity levels of our children and teenagers. For over 50 years, movies have been age-appropriately rated by an independent group of parents. 55 years. They are not rated by an internal board of the Motion Picture Association. In that same way, Governor Lee's law recommends policies and procedures be developed by local communities for the review of materials and feedback about materials for children and teens, including procedures to review and evaluate feedback regarding the library collection, to ensure the collection is appropriate for the age and maturity levels of the students who may access the materials. It also provides for removal of materials determined to not meet the criteria listed. If this is mandated for our schools, it is safe to apply such to our public libraries as well. In response to some of the comments, I'm a proponent of parents' rights. You heard the damage suffered by others who spoke. Millions have been swept into the clutches of the pornography empire. I was accused of inciting violence and hostility, but in reality, I'm responding to it. I do not want my tax dollars spent on these books. How can you assure us that pedophiles are not checking out these books or sitting in the libraries reading these things and plotting to hurt our
Time's up.
children?
Thank you. Maria G. Gee, Sandy Malcolm, Jack Tuberville, Michelle Dickin.
I'm Maria G., and I live in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I wanted to say that our country was formed on a statute of free speech, freedom of speech. For this reason, books should be available to all people in our public libraries. In the last few months, the path taken by many of the people here in this room from these books being in public libraries to these books being an attack on Christianity is a great confusion to me. Someone said there needs to be accountability. I would argue that that falls on the parents who are concerned about the books their children read. As a teacher in this county for more than 40 years, more children get on YouTube and TikTok than go to libraries. Is there still such a thing as separation of church and state in our government? Increasingly, I don't think so. I'm in favor of the librarians taking care of what is on our library shelves. I trust them. I would also mention that those of us who are not in the supposedly 70% of conservatives in this state deserve also to have our feelings known. Thank you.
I'm Sandy Malcolm. I live on Wilson Avenue here in Clinton. And I just want to say I love you guys. Thank you so much for enduring and letting us voice our concerns. I'm going to take a different tact. I figured everybody would be a little passionate, so I'm just going to go with rules and regulations. We've got a DA, Dave Clark, who can speak to what is porn and what is not. We have U.S. codes. I wrote them down. You know, we have defined acceptable materials by the state that we need to follow the guidelines. So I just call on our representatives, our legislators, to take the burden off of you guys trying to figure all this out and of a controversial issue. So I'm calling on them. Secondly, Dewey Decimal System has been in existence since 1873, and it is unbiased and unprejudiced, and it segregates books by subject. So if a child is struggling with gender dysphoria, they need to talk to their parents, and they need to talk to a psychologist or someone who can guide them and help them, adults. Because we drive slow in a school zone. Kids can't go to certain movies. They can't drink alcohol. Why? Because we, as a community and a society, protect our young until they get a little sense. And then they can begin to mature and make their own decisions about what they want to see, do, and behave like. and there's an age of consent. There's laws on the books. But at this point, Dewey Decibel could settle a lot of this. If it's gender dysphoria, then that's the 100s, that's psychology and philosophy. Or the 400s is social sciences. So, let's look outside the two passions that are being expressed. We all have strong feelings, but we all are community, and we all want to protect our kiddos until they reach an age of accountability and consent. That's a law. And we are a law and order society. So I'm just imploring all of us, both sides of the agenda, let's follow the rules and use some Dewey Decibel, for goodness sake. Thanks.
I'm Jack Tuberville. I live at 1027 Mountain Road in Clinton. And my first disclaimer is that I have not seen or read any of these books. But I'm pretty sure I would be a little bit offended by some of them. And I can certainly see why religious people would be made uncomfortable by these books. But a lot of books make me uncomfortable. My wife reads a lot of murder mysteries that usually involve the murder of a husband. And that makes me uncomfortable. So why didn't you guys ban those books? Been feeling threatened for a long time. There are so many books out there that make so many people uncomfortable, and some of them make me uncomfortable too. For example, do you know the book, The Rape of Nanking? Do you know that book? It's a story about the Japanese invasion of China in World War II. And it is the most horrific book I ever read. In fact, I didn't read it, I couldn't get through it. And the author of that book ended up committing suicide. I would rather have my daughters read these books in question than the Rape of Nanking, because young people would have nightmares about that book. I mean, that event reached a new low in degradation. It was just something awful. So, even though some of these books make me uncomfortable, it's not your job to make me comfortable. And it's not your job to make somebody else comfortable. It's your job to be professional in what you do. But I will say this, if there's so many books that offend so many people, I think every single one of them should be banned from church libraries.
I'm Michelle Dickin. I live on Baylor Drive in Oak Ridge. My original plan for my 3 minutes today was to talk about why we aren't banning a book that is not only read to but pushed on children in East Tennessee. A book that contains incest, bestiality, prostitution, genital mutilation, rape, and infanticide. Of course, I'm talking about the Bible and stories like the one of Lot's daughters who got him drunk so they could rape him repeatedly while he was passed out. I'm sure the people who want to ban LGBTQ books would likely be thrilled to catch their children randomly reading the Bible at their local library. But instead of my plan to read these horrifying stories for 3 minutes, I decided to go in a different direction today. I thought instead to reflect on what it really means to protect and care for our children. Now I would like to directly address those in favor of banning these books. I ask you, why are we here today talking about banning books that no one is forcing your children to read? Why are we not here today with a public forum discussing the 21% of children in Tennessee that live in food insecure households? Where is the public forum to discuss the 7,000 children in foster care in Tennessee and the fact that we don't have enough resources to care for them? Or the fact that Tennessee ranks 40th in healthcare and 33rd in education? So let's just drop the facade and be honest here. This is about hate and fear. You hate the LGBTQ community and are terrified that your child might become part of it someday. You are letting your hate and fear rule your lives instead of putting that effort into something that could actually protect children. I'd like to end with a quote that may resonate with those who want to ban books. Today, Christians stand at the head of this country. We want to fill our culture again with the Christian spirit. We want to burn out all of the recent immoral developments in literature, in theater, and in the press. In short, we want to burn out the poison of immorality which has entered into our whole life and culture as a result of liberal excess. That quote is by Adolf Hitler. If you want to ban books, please don't kid yourself about the side of history you stand on. And for those today who have said, yeah, the Nazis banned books, but we're not like the Nazis. Yeah, if you do things the Nazis did, I mean, keep saying that, it's pretty funny.
Krista Brailsford, Marianne Hardy, William Kasanovic, C.J. Mitchell.
My name is Krista Brailsford. I live off of Montana Lane in Oak Ridge. Something like 1 or 2% of the world's population has naturally red hair. My husband has red hair. Something like 4 to 15% of the world's population is queer, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. My husband is very real, and so are our queer, our gay and queer friends and cousins. And I'm here today because I want our queer kids and our queer adults and our queer teens here in Anderson County to know that somebody here has their back. And that's what the libraries are for. Thank you.
I'm Mary Ann Hardy. I live on Oliver Springs Highway, Oliver Springs. I'm a retired Anderson County elementary school teacher. Most of what I was going to say has already been addressed, so I'm going to go with just a short quote from Judy Blume, the original queen of teen literature. I believe that censorship grows out of fear, and because fear is contagious, some parents are easily swayed. Book banning satisfies their need to feel in control of their children's lives. This fear is often disguised as moral outrage. They want to believe that if their children don't read about it, their children won't know about it. And if they don't know about it, it won't happen. Thank you all.
My name is Bill Kasanovich. I live in Oak Ridge. I'm a retired pastor of the Presbyterian Church USA. The point I wish to make is to identify where there actually is real danger to our kids. A study in 1997 and dozens that have followed have shown that specific, identifiable, adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, have lasting detrimental effect throughout adulthood, leading to cancers, heart disease, addictions, and every major disease category. These ACEs include physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, emotional neglect, and physical neglect, that is not having sufficient food, shelter, or medical care. There is no controversy about this. I ask you, look it up. Kids are in danger when they are abused in their families, at schools, anywhere in the community. Kids are in danger when bullying is not challenged, whether a bullying parent, another kid, a teacher, a coach. Kids are in danger when they don't have a safe place to go or a safe person to talk with. Kids are in danger when they don't have enough food or the right food to strengthen their bodies and minds. An acute danger at this moment is the prospect that our legislators will permit the family and child benefits that were increased during the pandemic to expire this week. The number of children living in poverty in this country dropped in half during the pandemic. It will certainly rise back to unconscionable levels with those benefits gone away. Many here appreciate, I hope that many of you here appreciate what this lifeline has meant for their kids, and are you aware even that it's about to go away? Kids are in danger when they're poorly educated, so they're not capable of performing the complex work demanded in many 21st century jobs. Also, when they're not capable of analyzing an argument to determine if it is well-grounded or without any real evidence or built from outright lies to serve some special interest. Tennessee ranks near the bottom in its investment in K-12 education and its salaries for teachers. Kids are in danger when their parents are unable to provide for their basic needs because they themselves are in abusive work situations for ruthless employers who refuse to pay them a living wage or assign them enough hours to earn medical benefits and bully them when they try to organize into unions. Kids are in danger in Tennessee because our elected leaders have chosen to give our billionaires and multimillionaires a pass on income tax, but require all of us, including those who live well below the poverty line, to pay the highest income taxes in the nation on everything they buy. Kids are not endangered by books. If we care about kids in Anderson County, our focus should not be on librarians and books that get targeted by special interest groups from Ohio, Colorado, or Arkansas. Rather, they should focus on these areas where kids are actually abused and neglected and may enter paths that are unhealthy for them. Thank you.
Rachel McNeely, Richard Burrows.
CJ Mitchell,
Yeah.
Fairview area. I'm sorry that in this day and age, we have to be here tonight having this conversation, but this isn't an apology, this is a thank you. Thank you, Anderson County Library Board, librarians, literature lovers, and library tangents for supporting our community. Thank you for providing stories to the children and young adults living in fear, shame, or confusion so that they might find a way to understand themselves, their situations, and learn to love themselves. Thank you for providing stories to their friends so that they might learn empathy and have a better understanding of someone different than themselves. Thank you for providing stories to their parents and families so that they may understand and love these children and young adults all the more. Thank you for providing literature that might create a more accepting culture so one LGBTQ youth doesn't attempt suicide every 45 seconds. Thank you for understanding that willful ignorance and avoidance of things someone disagrees with or doesn't like does not give them the right to dictate how others must approach or learn about those things. We understand that a threat to our books, librarians, and libraries is a threat to our community. You have our sincerest thanks for standing up and making sure all viewpoints and community members are seen, heard, respected, and represented. We pledge our continued support for you and will stand in solidarity behind you so that every person, no matter their age, will have access to knowledge for a thriving, healthy, and happy community.
My name is Rachel McNeely, and I live in Andersonville. I'm here today to support our public libraries and to speak for the sake of our children, all of our children, including gay and transgender teens in our community, and children who have loved ones and family members who are in the LGBTQ community that have lived here in Anderson County for decades. What message are we sending these children by removing books like Granddad's Camper that simply have a gay character they might identify with or recognize as loved ones in their lives? That they should be ashamed of who they are or who their loved ones are? That they are sinful, evil people who shouldn't exist? Is that really the message that we want to send? As parents, we have the right to teach our kids our own beliefs, even if they are discriminatory towards others in our own community. But we do not have the right to expect public places like the library to uphold such beliefs. The library is a place that is designed to be inclusive for everyone and has served my family and many others for countless years. They do not deserve to be attacked, and as citizens of Anderson County, we should focus our attention on the real problems we have, as other people have stated, like drug addiction, poverty, and lack of services for the elderly and disabled. Thank you.
Stephen Green and Toby Green, you want to make your way up?
Thank you, Josh.
Oh, name and address, please.
Richard Burrows, Oak Ridge. I've heard a lot. Everybody's got their opinions here. One thing I haven't heard, and I'd wonder, maybe you all can think about this. What is the motive for these books? What's the reason? What's the agenda? Is there an agenda? What's the reason for writing these books? Do they educate, I guess, on perversion or whatever the subject is? But no history there, no English. So what is the motive? There was, years ago, a choice that was claimed to be enacted into law. It was just a legal opinion of our Supreme Court. It gave a choice to women. How many tens of millions of babies were killed? Let me ask you, what's the motive for this? We have a choice. You're offering a choice. Like a Baskin Robbins. A child can walk in and has 31 flavors at Baskin Robbins? 31 flavors of gender to choose from. You can be a he, a she, a them, an it. You can be both. It can be neither. Whatever it is. And I don't get it. I don't understand it. Don't want to know, particularly. Don't want to be educated with it. There is two sexes. There's a male, there's a female. That's the way of the world. That's science.
Well,
Nope. Does it? There's more than two sexes. Well, that's good, and that's the motive. There's your motive. You want to teach our children this pseudoscience that there are 31 flavors, gender flavors that they have to choose from. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Stephen Guerin. My address is 816 Ridgeview Drive, Clinton, Tennessee. I'm a local business owner and a member of the Anderson County Young Republicans. And as a taxpayer, I would like to say I oppose these books and I don't believe that they should be available to children. Thank you.
Toby Guerin of Ridgeview Drive, father of 9 children. This evening, we have a room full of concerned parents. Parents that know the dangers that come from exposing our children to the material that is available in our library. Some of it normalizes pedophilia, incest, and sodomy. 3 things that will bring assured destruction to any civilization. Nothing good can come from exposing our children to this filth. This material is neither academic nor intellectual. Our community needs to protect the most vulnerable in our community, our children. This material exposes our children to some of the most perverted lines of literature ever written. I will protect my children from being molested by this filth. But what about all the children in our community that don't have concerned parents? Who will protect them? Every child needs to be protected from these perversions. Exposing our children to this filth is nothing less than child abuse. It's the duty of every parent that loves their children to protect them from these child predators. Most of us parents are so outraged because we believe that this propaganda and the people promoting it are working like wolves in sheep's clothing, slowly grooming our children so they can pervert them and take advantage of them. The very least action this library can do is to protect minors from accessing this material. Currently, there's nothing preventing a minor from reading these books while in the library. The promoters of this filth preach tolerance and acceptance. And they are tolerant and acceptant of everything except the truth. It is the duty of every father in this community to protect their own children and the children of our community from these pedophiles. If you love children, you protect them from these offenses. And whosoever shall offend one of these little ones that believe in me, it's better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and he were cast into the sea. This group is divided. One side wants to protect our children. The other side wants to molest them. Which side are you on?
Michael T. I can't read your last name, sorry. Riverbend Road. Joan Burns, Kevin Jennings, Stella Schramm.
It's Terheiden, Riverbend Road in Clinton. Somebody said they would rather read some of this literature than The Rape of Nanking. I'd rather children read, age appropriate, read The Rape of Nanking, or The Gulag Archipelago by Solzhenitsyn, or about the Nazi death camps. I did that, age appropriate time. I don't know how the authors stayed sane, but that material taught me about the depth of evil. And I think that's important to learn. I didn't have to experience it. I was able to absorb it through literature. The Bible's been mentioned. There are some awful things in the Bible. The Bible doesn't approve of those things. That's such a disingenuous argument. The books here do approve of what people are concerned about for their children. The Bible has a very profound message. It's not just about God. It's also about human nature and how people can live together, and all the awful struggles that they've experienced. I hear a lot about banning books here. Well, maybe some people want to ban books, and I don't know that that's such a horrible thing. People on the left have banned books. They ban the classics. At least the classics tell us something about human nature. They tell us something that helps us live in a tough world, not working out our sexual identity. Dr. Seuss was canceled. Mayor Terry Frank apparently was canceled here. There's no problem with canceling. The left doesn't have a problem with that. Freedom of speech. They're so concerned on the left, and I'm going to use the term left and right maybe. Those terms don't describe people well, but you'll understand what I'm saying. Freedom of speech, I don't see why they would consider this a serious freedom of speech issue. We had a sitting president get canceled on Twitter. Universities won't allow conservatives to speak there. The teachers, professors and students, they don't like the speech, they call it violent. So I think these are disingenuous responses to the people here concerned about their children and the literature that they could be exposed to.
5 seconds.
That went fast. Well, I think what's going on here
Time's up.
is that we've got a difference in worldview. Thank you.
Joan Burns, 33 years, resident in Oak Ridge. I agree with many of the people who spoke earlier today or this evening on why we should not be banning books, so I will keep my remarks as brief as I can. I applaud and appreciate the effort by the Library Forum to have this discussion, and I also trust that the policies and procedures that are in place are the right thing for us. I'd like to say that I'm shocked that we are facing this discussion of banning books, but after living in Tennessee for a long time, I'm not so shocked. I do believe that all books expand our minds, they educate our children and adults, and they offer resources to help people. I believe as a taxpayer that our public libraries should offer the widest selection that we can afford of ideas, opinions, genres, and formats, so that anyone who wants to access information can do so. Our libraries serve the entire community and should be resources for all of us without limit. I believe parents have a right to limit what their children read, but they do not have a right to limit me or my children on what they need. Faith is important to me as well. I believe in God, but I believe in the separation of church and state. I think that the library board represents the entire community and that we should keep this process in place and allow people to read what they will read. Thank you.
I'm Stella Schramm, Oak Ridge resident. I just want to commend the library on what I hear tonight is, first of all, everybody agrees that they're right? So we've got that going for us. What I hear too is that the process is working. People have been able to request books, people have been able to object to books, people have been able to voice concerns and have them heard with all seriousness by the professionals that have been tasked with providing those books to us. I want to clarify that a public library is for a mature adult audience as well as for kids. So it is going to, somebody pointed out the objection of having mature material, but yeah, a library is all about having mature material to serve our adults. I also want to say that it's really important, as has been said by others, that we represent everybody in the community and have resources available to everybody in the community. What has been suggested is bearing false witness against both the librarians, the other individuals here, and attacking them personally, saying that they've got covert activist agendas, that they're not acting in good faith. Several times people have brought up here pornography, pedophilia, and incest. That is really a sinful thing to say. It is a fear-mongering, hateful thing to say and has no basis in fact. Along those lines, I want to add that something I said before at your library board meeting is that, you know, as a Christian, when we speak for God, we've got a very heavy burden upon us. And the third commandment tells us that we don't. And the reason is so obvious here tonight, that our prejudices, our ignorance, our biases, our own particular circumstances, which nobody else knows, influence that. And when we project ourselves as speaking for God, we're projecting our own egos, our own problems, our own issues out into the world as though it was God. And that's a sin. So I just want to clarify that, biblically, 10 Commandments. So I support the library, I support their process, and I think we can all use that process. So to raise legitimate concerns and not bully the people doing the job. Thank you.
Amanda Powers, Eli Clark, Angelina Long, Gerald Mullins, Jack Mansfield, and I think that's everybody. I think we're probably going to have to cut it off because we're going to get kicked out.
Amanda Powers, 509 Eagle Bend Road, Clinton, Tennessee. So a couple of things. First, the Bill of Rights has been mentioned tonight. It's been brought up several times. I feel sorry for a lot of people because they clearly didn't have very good history teachers. First thing, had nothing to do with God. I'd like to make that point clear. Next, just like the founding of our country, had nothing to do with God. Next thing, I used to test my students when I taught American history on the 5 freedoms that are in the First Amendment. They are as follows, because most kids can name the 5 characters on The Simpsons, but they couldn't name the 5 freedoms that you actually get in the First Amendment. They are as follows, and we're actually using all of them tonight. We get the freedom to petition the government, which people have done. They followed the process, it's failed, we can move on. Of assembly, which we're doing tonight. Of speech, which allows us to print of the press, which allows us to print these books. Of speech, which allows us to sit up here and talk tonight, and which makes banning books unconstitutional. And then the freedom from religion, which has been thrown about tonight. I'd like to go into that one a little deeper, especially about the Old Testament. I've adapted this from Aaron Sorkin, the brilliant screenwriter. Let me ask you a few questions. I'm interested in selling my daughter, if I had a daughter, into slavery as sanctioned by Exodus 21:7. Will you think about that? Let me ask another. I insist on working on the Sabbath because I get more work done when I'm there by myself. That's mentioned in Exodus 35:2. It clearly says that I should be put to death if I do that. Should I just be morally obligated to kill myself, or should I just call the police and have them do that for me? Let me ask this, because here in this town, football is a pretty big deal. It does say that touching the skin of a dead pig makes one unclean. Leviticus 11:7. If they promise to wear gloves, can the Dragons or the Mavericks still play football? Does the whole town really have to be together to stone me for planting different crops side by side? Can I burn my mother in a small family gathering for wearing garments made from 2 different threads? Think about those questions, would you? Don't cherry pick your scripture and throw it to me about some religious indoctrination. Well, you were too, thank you. Thank you. Now, as for the books, if you don't like the books, then don't read them. But that doesn't mean that I don't want my child, who's also a member of this community, to have access to them. Thank you for doing a wonderful job. And by the way, Janine Brewer is the best librarian ever.
Hi, my name is Eli Clark. I live on Phillips Lane in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I spent my entire childhood in the church. I spent a good portion not knowing or understanding anything outside of it, but knowing that I did not feel right in my own body. Any questions I had were passed over and never answered, and upfront and honest. Having these materials or representation would have helped me from preventing my first suicide attempt. I felt wrong in my existence and because it did not match everyone else that was around me. The first representation was introduced to me in high school when I joined the GSTA, and I found other students that were like me and questioned their own existence. Classmates that did not feel correct in their own body, but had each other to talk to about it. We did not have our parents. We did not have anyone else. As an Anderson County resident, please do not get rid of educational materials that might help somebody prevent their suicide. And I have one last thing to say. Everyone in this room is precious, loved, and worthy of being and feeling safe in their own body. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Gina Long. I live on 125 Wainwright Road. I also work at the public library. Some of you might know me. I am a recent graduate of Clinton High School last year, 2022, and I am a current student at the University of Tennessee studying neuroscience. I just want to make one statement, and then I want to extend an invitation. The statement I want to make is that there are 2 kinds of books we read. Some books are mirrors, and some books are windows. Books that are mirrors are books in which we see ourselves. Books that are windows are books in which we look into other people's lives and we gain new perspectives. When I was a child, I needed a window. So I come from a poor family, and It can be really difficult when all of your classmates are going on a field trip and you can't go because your mom can't afford it, or something like that. And I didn't know that that wasn't normal until I looked in a window. Some of the most important windows are sitting in this room right now. Kelly Harris and Janine Brewer, you were windows in my life, and I thank you. The next thing I want to do is, I know a lot of you are concerned about the goings-on at the library, and our busiest season is coming up right now. It's summer reading, and I want to invite all of you to participate in our summer reading, and if you feel so inclined, volunteer. The application is on our website, left-hand side, big blue button. There's only 4 of them, can't miss it. Thank you so much.
Who is the next name up?
I've got Gerald Mullins. And,
My name is George Mullins.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
I have terrible handwriting. Now, a number of people in this town know me, but for the sake of the argument, I'm going to use my old DJ name from 90.3 The Rock from a number of years ago, George the Male Amazon. I call myself the Male Amazon in honor of the fictional Amazons of Paradise Island. Anybody who knows your comic books, your superhero stories, modern-day folklore, you get what I'm saying. Let me tell you something. I don't see any rush by anybody to ban 2 particular books from the library, and they shouldn't be. They're titled Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead. Both of these books portray the wealthy as victims and charity as evil. Likewise, there are 4 particular books that are connected to a man named Jim David Atchison, who did something rather evil on July 27, 2008 in Knoxville, Tennessee. Liberalism is a mental health disorder, 100 people who are screwing up America, the O'Reilly factor, and Let Freedom Ring, winning the war of liberty over liberalism. I see no rush to ban those, and they shouldn't be either. Likewise, the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, Mein Kampf, those 2 books have not been banned. Everybody should have the right to read what they so desire. Just because I don't read them, because I don't like them, that doesn't make me the final arbiter as to what people should read. And to be perfectly honest with you, to sum up my nickname, George the Male Amazon, I call myself, as I said, in honor of the Amazons of Paradise Island. And believe it or not, on Halloween 2002, I dressed in an Ersatz Wonder Woman costume to win a bet. So let me tell you something, all you guys, gals, midnight pals, and submarine race fans. I will stand up and defend the staff of the Clinton Public Library, the Anderson County Library Board, from anything right down to my last drop of blood. As the Amazons of Paradise Island would say, Athena bless Mariah Webb and the staff of the Clinton Public Library and the Anderson County Library Board and anybody in Anderson County with a fully functioning brain. Thank you.
My name is Jack Mansfield, and I live in 103 Hendricks Drive, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. For the life of me, I can't understand why anybody, either the homosexual community, the heterosexual community, wants to promote and provide materials to small children that with this material that's being allowed them to be exposed to this material. It is sexual perversion, no matter what it is. Homosexual, heterosexual, it does not matter. It is sexual perversion. I'm a retired police officer. I worked for the city of Oak Ridge for 33 years. Back in 1979, I attended Basic Academy, and there we learned of an organization called NAMBLA, North American Man-Boy Love Association. It was looked on then as a criminal enterprise. Their motto was sex before 8 or it's too late. Today, they have a beautiful website. They've come out of the woods like all the rest of the homosexual alphabet to say, we're normal, this is the way we are. We think this should be allowed. They are for removing all laws that permit adult men to have sexual relations with young boys. Where's this going to end? You're going to take this material and expose it to small children. What are you going to do tomorrow when you find out that your 8-year-old daughter or your 8-year-old granddaughter, for some of those that are a little older, has been read this material and along with a neighborhood boy, and they have engaged in sexual activity? Or even worse, they have come to know an adult person who wants to engage sexual activity with them because they think it's perfectly acceptable and normal. It is not. This is Tennessee. This is not California, Washington, or Oregon. We believe in morality. As far as homosexuality, I didn't really want to get into it, but you're right, young lady. It's nothing new. A whole geographic region and culture was destroyed because of the sin of homosexuality. Throughout history, you can read all the history books you want. Every major civilization that has come and gone. The last 2 nails in the coffin was overabundance of attorneys and rampant homosexuality.
He has got the floor for about another minute. Stop interrupting, okay?
And I'm here to tell you, I know the law. There is laws on the books. I don't care if you're an adult, a parent, and you walk into that library and you go, I want to check out this book for my child. If it is smut and sexual perversion, you are violating the law. You have no right any more to do that than you do to walk in the house and give your child alcohol, underage child alcohol. That's a violation of the law. You are violating the law by providing its contribution to the delinquency of a minor. You can be arrested for it as well as the child. And you librarians, you're providing this material, you can be arrested too. And with the last thing I do, I will see that you get arrested. You can count on it. You provide this material to young children, I'm going to make sure you get arrested for it. You better watch what you're doing. And this is not a threat, this is a promise. It's conditional. You do it, that's what you're going to get. You're going to see.
Well, if anybody's interested, I think General Clark is going to have an opinion on a couple of the books that have been talked about the most. So I've talked to him. He's not got anything official yet. I don't think anybody's going to get arrested on this library board, though. I don't think any of the directors are going to get arrested. I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. I really appreciate the City of Clinton and the Clinton Community Center for hosting this. I appreciate our Clinton police officers and our Anderson County Sheriff's deputies who were here tonight helping keep us all cool and calm and collected. The next library board meeting, the business meeting, is April 13th at 5:30 at the Bryceville Public Library. Thank you all for coming. We're adjourned.